Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world to share their insight and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Starck, and the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator, where we drive revenue for companies by making sure they're seen as the authority and go-to expert in their industry versus just another product or service. And today we're talking about sales. And I love this topic. This is something was super scared of my whole entire life. I grew up in an entrepreneurial space. My dad was in real estate. It was all about selling. And I'm an introvert. So it was something that I always had fear around. But I'm thrilled to be joined by my guest, Tom Starck with Sales Star. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Heidi. Honored to be here and excited to have this conversation. And it's awesome to have you bring that much energy into the sales topic.
Yeah, my whole perspective has shifted because I've moved into entrepreneurship myself through my own personal journey, and selling is serving, and that's what I've learned. And if we're not selling, then somebody's staying stuck. So that's one of the mantras that I live by day to day, even through the fear. And I don't think it's something that, if we have the fear of selling or there's like some limiting beliefs around it, there's things that we need to move through it. And I'm honored to have you here talking about it. So can you, Tom, share with us who you are, a little bit about who you are, your company that you're here representing, and your role within it?
Sure. I think my professional journey, I waited a little while to dive in and start a professional journey. And in fact, I tried to avoid it altogether. My first 5 years out of college, I was fortunate enough to play and coach football. So I have a strong team sport background, been surrounded by phenomenal mentors, and had the value of servant leadership and communication driven into me from a very early age. I'm mentioning that because when I got into the workforce, I actually started in power sports. So I started in a motorcycle dealership. Wow. I was selling motorcycles, became a sales manager, ultimately became a general manager. It's the first time I saw my name at the top of an org chart. I was intimidated as all get out by that, but I didn't realize the value of that education in leadership and in investing in others and in communication. So power sports, which was a very high turnover industry, I was incredibly fortunate to have very stable teams. And I ran in the retail space for quite a while. Fortunately, after the retail run, I pivoted over to wholesale, stayed in power sports, and then I branched out a little bit. I went into capital equipment, and finished with a company that made docks. So I was kind of always pursuing the grass being greener. I hate to admit that because it sounds like a horribly immature idea. But I found the opportunity to advance and was hoping that either a small private company or a large private company or a private equity owned company or a large public company, and I've had experience in all of them, was going to provide me the leadership experience that I was looking for. I'd come in typically ground level or one level up as far as leadership, and in every role I advanced, tried to lead with integrity, really tried to pour into my team and do everything I could that I had been taught to help develop the people that I was in charge of, and found that corporate leadership was not functioning the way that I hoped it was. And I found the challenges in leading with integrity. And that's the short story to getting me to where I am today, which was to partner with Sales Star, right? And to have an opportunity to join a company that is a purpose-driven organization, driven by mission, driven by values. And our goal at Sales Star is to elevate the sales profession. And we do that through an intentional investment in helping level up salespeople. But as importantly as anything, if not more importantly to me personally, leveling up the sales leaders so that their team knows what it looks like to be successful. The leaders can look at those leading activities, those leading metrics, and we can kind of get away from that carrot and stick at the end of every month, whether we actually hit our budget or we didn't hit our budget, and just kind of the rinse and repeat, or the hamster wheel, like I like to refer to it as, that I was on for, almost 20 years of my life.
So you just said, like, you talk with leaders and you just mentioned rinse and repeat and those sales numbers and that carrot that we're dangling at the end of each month to hit those numbers. And it's really important that sales teams and organizations know their numbers, right? We do have to get in touch with the numbers. It's really important that we know what those are. What are our conversions? How many leads are we working, and et cetera. So let's talk about a sales plan, because we talked a little bit about that in the background before we hit, record here. So is a sales plan important what is a sales plan and why is it important for leaders to have one with their teams going forward to create successful enrollment or, building their sales force?
Sure. So I look at sales plan and sales process as hand in hand, right? So anybody who's listening who wants like the quickest soundbite to make an impact in their business immediately, organizations that have a clearly defined sales plan and sales process that your entire organization follows have a 15 to 19% bump in sales just by having the plan and process clearly articulated. And Heidi, I shared with you a little bit earlier the stories that I love to share with CEOs. And again, oftentimes I'm talking to somebody who's a warm introduction, but doesn't really know me from Adam, right? And one of my favorite questions to ask CEOs is, do you have a sales plan? Do you have a sales process, excuse me. And inevitably they're going to say yes, right? They don't know me from anybody. I'm not in their inner circle. They're not going to admit that that doesn't exist. But my follow-up question is always, if we got your team together, regardless of the size, right? It can be 5 people, it can be 100 people, it doesn't matter. If we got your team together, we got them all in a room and we asked them the exact same question. Do you have a sales plan and a sales process? And would they use the same verbiage that you would use, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, to describe what that is? And it's an absolute gotcha, but I've not had one CEO yet say, oh yes, absolutely. We are perfectly clear. It is communicated. My leaders know what it is. My team knows what it is. We go out and execute on it. So if you want to be 5 minutes into this thing and know what to do to give yourself a 15 to 19% bump in sales, get alignment there, get a plan in place, get a process in place, have everybody follow it and know and understand what that looks like.
Wow. So what are some of the common mistakes then that sales teams are making and how can they fix them?
Yeah, so my experience is with a lot of manufacturers. And what I've found in my manufacturing background and the manufacturing clients that I have is there's a lot of tribal knowledge, right? There's a lot of relationships. And actually, if you're to study the most effective sales techniques, relationship selling is like 7%. I mean, it's low as far as its effectiveness versus a consultative approach or some other approaches, Challenger and things of that nature that are out there. So that tribal knowledge, these relationships that have been long standing for a long time, you're going to run into salespeople or contacts inside of your clients that are going to age out of the workforce, that are going to move on. You're going to lose touch with them. You're going to open up opportunities for your competitors. I think one of the biggest pitfalls that I really run into is kind of allowing people, and I'm not an advocate for micromanagement, right? I think that we want to clearly define what the targets and the goals are and allow people to get out and run towards them. But this hands-off approach to sales leadership and allowing people to just rely on their relationships inevitably ends up backfiring for organizations. And I think that's maybe one of the bigger pitfalls that I see regularly.
Can you share with us, like, for those listening and they're listening to you and they're like, oh my gosh, like, I really want to learn more from Tom. Who would be the companies that you work with? So, like, to make sure that they're a fit if they're listening to you, like, who do you work with? Who's your ideal client? Who can you serve the best?
Yeah, sure. I love to serve companies in the tech and SaaS space and manufacturing clients. Those are the areas that I feel most comfortable talking the language and having the right conversations with. In general, there are revenue numbers, but that can be a little bit nebulous. In general, where we absolutely kill it is with companies with salespeople or sales teams, excuse me, as small as maybe 4 salespeople through a sales leader. Oftentimes in those organizations, it's kind of 4 salespeople through the CEO acting as a sales leader, up to maybe 20 or 25 strong through 4 or 5 sales leaders. If we get larger than that, what we do is we break up the sales organization into cohorts, because a lot of our ongoing coaching is held virtually and you get too large of an audience. It's really hard to engage. We always start with a couple days together aligning on sales plan and sales process, but the accountability portion and the ongoing coaching, getting into skill set, mindset, and ongoing performance, that's something that's held virtually, and we just can't get too big and make the impact that we'd like to have.
Yeah, so I have a question for you because I've been talking with a lot of people on the podcast, and I hear a lot about, oh, the pandemic shifted a lot of things for us. So how has the sales landscape changed in recent years, and what do sales professionals need to do in order to stay ahead? Because everything's always evolving, everything's always shifting.
Sure. Yeah, I would say the pandemic certainly shifted buying habits. It made some companies bold, and then they got burned by being bold as kind of the pandemic surge abated in their industry. It certainly made some companies incredibly timid. I would say that in 2024, there was some additional disruption, even coming off of the pandemic, just with all of the uncertainty, financial uncertainty, uncertainty around the election and everything.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of stalling. We're seeing a lot of extended buying cycles. We're seeing a lot of just a hesitancy to invest. Everybody's wanting to stay status quo, right? And I think that that's the to me, that's one of the worst things an organization can do. As an athlete, you're always told that you're either moving forward or you're moving backward. You are never standing still. And if you're standing still, you're allowing your competitors to find an opportunity to get a leg up if they're investing, if they're actually intentionally moving forward. I think maybe one of the newest and most interesting and fun horizons that we're facing now as we're getting here into early 2025 is obviously AI, the advent of AI, and how that's going to impact businesses. There's a lot of excitement about that. There's a lot of, I think, trepidation about it, and a lot of professions, including sales. But it is exciting to try and read the tea leaves and see where things are going and see how 25 comes out of that pandemic and 2024 uncertainty.
Yeah, my next question actually for you is around AI. So, with AI transforming so many industries, how do you see it impacting the sales process?
Yeah, so internally, we're pretty heavily investing in researching AI and finding the best ways to leverage it to help us, right? You're either the disruptor or you're the disrupted, especially in something that's going to make this massive paradigm shift. So one of the tools that we've used has helped us do role plays with an AI bot that we're able to program, and it's been fantastic. We're considering the viability of being able to roll that out. I think that's a really interesting way to leverage it. Obviously, note taking, I think, is a fantastic way to leverage AI and ensure that you're able to go back and capture information from discovery meetings as you go into presentation and things of that nature. It takes a little bit of the burden off of those of us that are having these triage calls and discovery calls of having to sit there and take notes and then go back and look at what we've taken and try and decipher it and figure it out. It also helps us be more present. And I know even just personally, I'll leverage AI occasionally to ensure that I've got, it's a step beyond ensuring grammatical correctness, but to ensure that I've got the right tonality and that I'm getting the message across the way that I want to if I'm responding to an email or things of that nature. So I think people are going to still buy from people. And, another statistic that we're heavily invested in is that 85% of buying decisions remain emotional. We go back and justify it logically when we want to, but after we've kind of made an emotional connection, an emotional investment in the decision. So I think I hope AI is going to be leveraged as a tool to help us do our jobs more efficiently and effectively so that we can continue to make the emotional connection with our clients and continue to move their businesses forward.
Yeah, I think I don't see that changing. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just like on the back end of the AI bus. It took me a little bit to jump on board, but I'm on board now. And I think it's great for efficiency and productivity and, creating your emails with tweaking. You get to it gets to be a guide, but not our end all be all. Like you said, Tom, it's not going to replace the human connection. And when we're buying certain things, especially when we're making a big investment, it's going to be an emotional thing. And we're going to need to work through that. And a robot or AI is just not going to be able to help us move through it. And again, they're not going to be able to listen to us like the other side the person on the other end of whether it's a Zoom call, or in person on the other side of the couch. We need that human connection. We need somebody listening. And I think that is what's the biggest thing in sales. It's not really about the AI. It's about listening to listen. And I've had this conversation with a few people now, and I've realized that, and I've made this mistake, you're listening to give them the best response. So instead of focusing on the sale or your product, focusing on what their true problem is and listening to that person. And what's that age old saying that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care? And yes, It's been overstated and oversaid, but it's so, so true. It's so, so true. And AI is just not going to be able to fill that. So thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to cut you off. It won't replicate an empathetic connection,
Yeah.
right? And you know, I know I alluded a little bit to some of the challenges with sales leadership that I've seen. A big part of that is human empathy, right?
Yeah.
And with my athletic background, I can assure you that that's not necessarily a soft concept. I've been around incredibly empathetic leaders that were holding us accountable to what needed to be achieved for the team to be successful, right? That's how they're measured. So you can have empathy and still be a great leader. You can have empathy and still hold your team accountable. But that's something that AI is never going to replicate is that empathy, the ability to make the emotional connection. And I love when you talked about how you've changed your mindset around sales. To me, sales is exclusively creating an emotional connection, actively listening, and solving problems. And sales can certainly get a bad rap, and everybody can pull up the avatar of a sleazy car salesman in their head and think that this is what a salesperson is. I actually had one of my clients, when I first started talking to him, say, listen, I don't know if I want to do business with you. I don't want any sleazy sales guy. That's his tagline, is sleazy sales guy. And in fact, I might owe him some money for just violating his copyright on sleazy sales guy. But sales, to me, is one of the most wonderful professions in helping people solve their problems. Sometimes problems that they might not know that they had, or they might not know that there was a solution for. And it's incredibly altruistic. And again, it requires the empathy that AI isn't going to be able to provide. But if AI helps us listen better, recall better, stay present, because we know, again, those notes are going to be there for us, or communicate better, then I think it's a powerful tool to help enable salespeople.
Absolutely. And we use it, just like you said, in discovery calls or informational gathering. Like, it's so important to have that, because when we're like, literally, I used to be jotting down notes like I'm going crazy, but you're not fully present and able to engage. And you're so focused on, and then go like, okay, what do I ask next? Versus being present, and the note takers in the background, which is phenomenal. I love this tool. And it also helps us in this podcast. We have it in the background running right now, and it's going to help us with our notes so we can properly showcase you and everything that you shared when we're putting out our clips and things like that. So there is power in it. It's like, it helps so much. But again, in sales, it's not going to take away that human piece, and I don't think that'll ever go away. And if that does happen, then that's a problem with us on the human space. That means we become unempathetic, and that's something we need to look at. So I don't think that's going to ever be an issue. So for people who are listening, Tom, who have businesses and they might be struggling with their sales right now, I've talked with people who have, it's been a little slow. We're having this conversation in March, end of February, but almost March. We're at the end of February. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out right now. It's probably going to be a couple months, because with the schedule. But for business who are struggling, some people have had a couple slow months kicking off 2025. So if they're struggling with sales, what's the first step that you would suggest they should be taking to turn things around?
So I'll tell you our first step, and I think it's an incredibly powerful one. It's not something that everyone's going to take, but we have a structured milestone-centric process that we try and filter our client journey through. Now, that said, our client journey is tailored to each individual client, right? It's something that's architected with them. But our first step tends to be analysis. And we've partnered with an incredibly powerful organization that has a sales specific analysis tool that can really help you find out who your team is made of and analyze their sales DNA, find their mindset issues, help identify areas where they might have a weakness that now you can, once it's identified, once you name it, you can tame it, right? Once it's identified, your sales leader can work with them on, and we can work on overcoming those issues that are likely costing your business money. That's where I love to start. Not everybody wants to start there. In the absence of that, the area that everyone can start is to ensure that your sales plan is currently market relevant, is tidy, is aligned to your goals. That means you know who your ideal client is, you know what target market you're trying to work with, and really, more than anything, you know what problems you're trying to solve or what pains you're trying to solve for your clients. Ideally, in a perfect world, if you're really trying to make this thing stick, you get your team together and you make sure that when you leave the room or the time that you spend together, everybody can clearly articulate that plan with the same language and knows and understands what that is. And then we want to go into the process, right? How do we execute within approaching our ideal client? how do we position ourselves? What is our unique value proposition to get us away from being commoditized with everybody else out there who's trying to do something similar to what we do? How do we get away from a position where somebody else can come in and say, yeah, but me too, and then get this thing down to just a conversation about price? I agree with you. 2025 has started off challenging. 2024 was a challenging year again for many reasons that we already covered off on. And obviously the pandemic created its own set of either opportunities or challenges. But the organizations that make an intentional investment in their salespeople and their sales leadership and ensuring that they're lockstep, again, we talked about that boost that comes out of just having a robust plan and process, are going to see whatever share gains they make in the tough times maintain as the pie grows, right? And if you've been on the gas and chasing and upping your game in the challenging times, you're going to tend to reap the reward again as the pie increases and buying habits shift to be a little bit more favorable again.
Yeah. So for you listening, you need a plan. And Tom's the one that can help you get the plan together because it comes down to the sales plan, which we started talking about at the beginning, and it hasn't changed throughout this whole conversation. So Tom, can we shift over a little bit into growth because that's the topic of the podcast is really helping our listeners grow their business. How has your company, like what challenges have you all faced in your journey? And I know that you have a big company and there's different facets to it and you're throughout the world in many different ways. But have there been any challenges during your growth process that you've seen? And how have you guys overcome them?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm incredibly excited about with SalesStar. So SalesStar, you alluded to, it's a large company. SalesStar is a company that just celebrated its 20-year anniversary. It was based out of New Zealand. Our CEO took a challenge from, I believe, a college professor. He'll tell this story better than I will because it's his, but he was challenged to name, and his class was challenged to name a global brand out of New Zealand, and they couldn't do it. And he was like, well, I'm going to build a global brand. So SalesStar is now in 8 countries. Again, celebrated our 20-year anniversary. We've got currently 7 partners in the States. We're in Mexico. We're in Europe. Some of the challenges have been aligned with just trying to understand the different markets and the buying habits in different markets. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of in being in this organization, as large as it is that they're constantly seeking feedback from those of us that are in the field and our coaches and everybody who's out there to ensure that our methodology, our go-to-market approach, and that our plan and process is as tight as we need it to be. We're going to be a horrible teacher and coach if we're not making sure that we're aligned on our plans and our processes and what we're doing. So I think now, probably more than ever, and that sounds like a very cliche thing to say, but you think about the speed at which every profession has been impacted by technology. And again, the AI conversation that we've just had, right? I think it's incredibly important that if you're looking to grow, you're always aware of how the tides are shifting and the challenges that you may be facing to growth, the barriers that you're facing, and that you're leveraging your minds, because most organizations have brilliant people. Most organizations have brilliant people that can help overcome these challenges. So leverage your minds to get people together on how we overcome these. Again, my CEO is incredibly fond of saying those that plan the fight don't fight the plan. So I think that leveraging the collective intelligence is maybe one of the best strategies to ensure that you're staying relevant regardless of the market conditions.
Yeah, and there's that word again, plan.
There we go.
Plan, right? That's the key to it. And I love that he comes to you all for feedback. That's important. And I think that is how businesses have shifted over the course of, years. Those businesses and those leaders that actually bring their team on as, part of the process versus just the separation. Those are the ones who are thriving. The world is changing. The what's the word I'm looking for? The scope of business has changed, and collaboration, connection, and that just doesn't just happen with you and your potential clients. It also happens with you and your team. And it starts with it starts with team, and then everything else trickles out. And I love that he's, doing that and open enough to ask for feedback, because that's what's going to help him make the decisions that are going to help all of you succeed and keep the company going. And he's obviously been doing something right if he's been in business for 20 years. So congratulations.
20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, and when you consider 20 years and you consider 8 different countries, and you consider that when you average the first year growth that we've been able to impact our partners with, it's about 37%. That's a lot of different economic conditions. That's a lot of different shifts and readjustments and alignments to make sure that we can maintain that metric. But it's critical that we do it, because as soon as that falls off, then we, just like anything else, lose a little bit of our competitive edge. We maybe put ourselves in a position where somebody else can say, me too, and devalue our offering. So this, we actually have one of our core values. It's our 5th core value. We have 5 that we live by, and it's better never stops, which is, again, this constant evolution, consistent learning, and ensuring that everything that we're doing is always market relevant, because things are changing, as we've already alluded to a couple times, incredibly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple more questions. What has been, like, as far as marketing goes, in you 20 years, right? I'm sure you guys have done a lot over the 20 years for marketing, but what are you seeing for you all that's working? Like, has something worked for you or didn't work for you in 2024 that you've like, you know what, we're not doing that in 2025, and something that you maybe like, we're doubling down on this? Is there any marketing strategy that you're taking to take your business to the next level in 2025?
It feels like, especially now, you have to have a really solid, multifaceted approach, right? We have historically grown businesses off of warm lead generation through lead magnets and things of that nature on social media. We are all incredibly invested in building our personal brands, right? Wanting to ensure that the people that land on our pages, our profiles, want to do business with us. We're incredibly invested in finding speaking engagements, podcast opportunities, webinar opportunities, anything to find a way to be as present as we can. We'll certainly leverage email and occasionally even cold phone outreach. But the biggest part is, again, ensuring that we have a plan as we get to an engagement point through any of those methodologies. I don't know that I've identified which one specifically needs to be doubled down on, as much as and it can be a little bit maddening, right? To feel like you're spread so thin trying to invest in all of these different areas. But again, if you're not getting better, you're probably getting worse, as opposed to staying the same. And it feels like if you're not making sure that you're everywhere as much as you can be, you're giving opportunity to somebody else.
Yeah, and there's strategy behind that, right? There's strategic visibility that can be done in order to make you so you're not feeling like you're running the rat race and always spread thin. So thank you. That's true. You got to be everywhere, right? And there's strategic ways of doing it. Now, if you're just starting and you're listening to Tom and I, and you're just starting, don't be everywhere. That's a quick recipe for burnout. But as you're growing, there's things that you can do in order to leverage other people's skills in order to put you everywhere to support you in that. But it's super important that you are looking at all your options and going to the first places that are going to leverage you the best to get you the most visible, to get you in front of your right people. My last question for you is, if we were able to come back in 2025 or 2026, if we were able to come back in a year and revisit this conversation and have you back on, what would success look like for SalesStar and you?
Yeah, for me, again, this is a purpose-driven organization where my values align, and my goal here is to do good. And I know that's very simple and not super articulate, but what doing good looks like to me is to impact lives, right? I hate to do this because it sounds old to say I'm looking through the eyes of my younger self, but my sales journey of trying to find where the grass was greener was often littered with leadership challenges, sometimes challenges where I was asked to act in a way that didn't align with my values and with integrity. So if we're talking in early 2026, I just want to know that I've impacted lives, right? We do use metrics. We do look at establishing that growth, and again, that average, and ensuring that we're performing to or above that. And the clients that I have, we're working magic with. I mean, when you add the human element to some of the scientific process and the milestone-centric approach that we take, you really make magic. The people are what makes the magic, and that's what fires me up every day. That's what gets me excited to have conversations with CEOs that I've never met and don't know me, is to talk about how we can impact their people's lives, how we can improve the leaders that are leading them. Every fifth post on LinkedIn is people don't leave companies, they leave bad management, right? I mean, scroll down it for a few minutes, you're going to see it in some vein, probably 10 or 15 times. So there are some numerical metrics, absolutely. But the real metric to make me feel good about where I'm at, what I'm doing, and how we're doing it is to live within my values and to be impacting lives and knowing that we're making a difference.
So good. So, Tom, for those listening, how can they reach out to you and connect with you?
I'm obviously on LinkedIn, and by email, it's tom.starck, it's Starck, at salestar.com. Yeah, I would welcome any follow-up conversations that come out of this. Absolutely.
Yeah, please connect with Tom. He's a great guy. He's so personable, easy to talk with. He'll respond to you. He wants to connect, and I will be the first one to tout him. So definitely connect with Tom. Tom Starck is it Tom Starck on LinkedIn, but with this Starck?
Correct.
And we're going to have all of your links inside of the show notes, Tom. So if you're listening and you're driving and you can't like go on your phone right now and connect, we have all of his contact information in the show notes. Make sure you grab them. If you're watching Tom and I on YouTube, please subscribe. And so you get dinged for all our amazing people, including Tom, and leave a comment for Tom below in the comments. What's your biggest takeaway that he gave you? What's the biggest gold nugget that you walked away with? Because there's so many. And if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast platforms, please leave us a review. It helps us reach more people. If you love what Tom was sharing today, please share it to all of your friends, people in the business, so they can get the value that Tom has brought to us today. So thank you, Tom, so much. Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't get to ask you or touch on before we go?
I don't think so. Thank you. And if I were to throw a plug out there as well, if you're lucky enough to get reached out to by Heidi or her team to have a conversation, she's an absolutely wonderful podcast host, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that, Tom. I receive it. Thank you so much. For you listening, if you are looking to amplify your visibility and you're feeling like you're stuck and you don't know what to do next, go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint. We'll give you all the ins, all the to-dos, and reach out to Tom, LinkedIn, Tom Starck, but it's Starck. And also you can go to salestar.com and reach out to tom.starck, Starck, at salestar.com. Thank you again, Tom. Thank you all for listening to Tom and I today, and we will see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight podcast.